Hey, Lance here, Vintage Speaker Audiophile. I just picked up a pair of JBL L26s on Facebook Marketplace. And I got them for a really good price, too, only $200. Now, they're not in new condition by any stretch of the mean. They're a little beat up. But for $200, how can you go wrong? I just looked on eBay. There was a pair that recently sold for $419, and I don't know if that was a local pickup or they shipped. Shipping was $200 on top of that. So $200 is a pretty good price for these. The guy I bought them from claimed he had them for 40 years. So that's almost like a one-owner speaker, which is really good. Cabinets are, they're rough. This one especially is rough. This one has some veneer here that's kind of coming up. But the grills are in decent shape, and the drivers look fine. I don't know if these have been refoamed. Let's see. These might have been refoamed. Whoever did it did a good job, I can tell you that. Is the L26 tweeter. It's a decent tweeter for a cone tweeter. It's not a modern tweeter. These are old speakers, so it's not like a dome or a horn or an AMT, but these are good. These are good tweeters. I just got them out of the car, and I just got them hooked up. They have the old JBL binding posts, which leave a little to be desired, but they're adequate for the job. All in all, I'm pretty happy with the purchase so far. I have done some listening, and I have them set up properly. I have them set up near field. Here you can see as my this is my listening chair, and they're approximately 6 feet away from my listening position. What I wanted to do here is just to take you through some of the things I did with them and maybe listen to them a little bit and talk about them just briefly. We'll keep this video short. I typically don't do a lot of speaker reviews, but I got these new today, so I'm pretty excited about it. First thing I always do when I get speakers hooked up and I hook them up new, I always run a couple of test tracks. And I've mentioned this before in other videos, but I always run for sure 2 test tracks. One is an in-phase, out-of-phase test track that verifies that I hooked them up correctly. Now, I usually hook them up correctly, but occasionally I've run across speakers that had some funny wiring inside them where they weren't internally wired correctly. So I always run this particular test track, and what it does is it sends some signal to the left, sends some signal to the right, and also sends a normal phase signal to the speakers and an inverted phase signal, so you can tell exactly whether the speakers are set up properly or not. That's just a quick left-right test. If we go a little further on here, we'll get to a section where it tests phase. So right here, you should be getting a very clear center image. And this should just sound odd. When speakers are not hooked up correctly and you're getting an out-of-phase signal from them, they sound odd. They sound like the sound is coming from kind of all over the place. It's a little disconcerting, actually. So you always want a good center image, and then you'll know whether you're hooked up properly or not. The next one I run is real quick too. It's just a soundstage test. It's real quick. I'll just play it real quick. It's only 40 seconds long.
My voice should appear to come from a single point at the far left of your soundstage. My location should be exact and well focused.
My voice should appear to come from a single point in the center of your soundstage. My location should be exact and clearly focused. No part of my voice should appear to come from the left or the right channel.
My voice should appear to come from a single point at the far right.
There, you get the idea. I will provide links to these 2 test tracks in the description. Again, I have installed hundreds, well over 100 pairs of speakers, and I can pretty much tell, quickly whether the speakers are right or not, just because I've done it so often. But I still, to this day, I always run these tests because it's a very good sanity, check. Again, especially if there's some funky wiring going on inside one of the speakers, and I've had that happen before. So these are 2 ways. 10-inch woofer, little cone tweeter. It's got an L-pad resistor right here on the front here, so you can dial up the highs or dial them down a little bit. When I get a pair of speakers like this, I usually like to open them up and update the crossover capacitors, because these older speakers, the crossover capacitors degrade with time. Electrolytics do. Not so much film caps, but electrolytics certainly degrade over time and they fall out of spec. So it's a good idea to replace the capacitors in them. But furthermore, newer, modern day good capacitors are just sonically superior to the stuff that they were using, 50, 60 years ago. So even if there's film caps in there, I'm usually tempted to buy a nice pair of modern day capacitors and upgrade the crossover. I did look up the crossover in this particular model, and it's very simple. It has a single capacitor that filters out low frequencies to the tweeter. So that's not a problem. That's easy, and it's cheap too. I only need to buy 2 8 microfarad capacitors. The catch here is the network, the crossover is attached to the back of this plate. So it's literally, when you pull the woofer out, it's literally mounted on the front, and it's glued. And I think I read it was stapled as well. So that can be a challenge to get a crossover, out that's up in here. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll listen to them for a couple of weeks and see what we think about them, and then decide whether we want to, spend some time putting some work into them. Let's just take a quick listen. What do we got here? Audio testing tracks. Let's try. Here we go. Deep bass and analog recording. Audiophile NBR store. I believe these are okay to play. I don't think I'll get a copyright infringement. So let's give it a try and see. Let's start over. As I'm pretty much always running YouTube, I like streaming from YouTube. That's my go-to source. I do use Tidal as well, so I do have a higher definition, lossless streaming source, but YouTube is my go-to source. That's nice. That's very nice. Channel separation is very good. They image quite well. The sound is nice and warm. They sound good. they're really putting out a lot of sound. I'm impressed for being a bookshelf speaker. I mean, it's a large bookshelf with a 10-inch woofer, but they're putting out quite a bit of sound. If I were to guess, if I were to do a blind test, I would have guessed the woofers were 12-inch and not 10-inch. So these are my JBL L26s. We'll keep this short. What are they worth? In the condition they're in, they're worth $200. That's what I paid for them. They're not worth any more or less, which I'm happy with the price. If I wanted to clean them up and fix them up, I could probably get $400 for them. Now, the L26 has a real good reputation with a lot of listeners. It's considered to be one of the JBL speakers that really kind of came together as a package quite well. So overall, it's a reasonably sought after JBL. It's not, rare or anything like that. You can find them, and you can find them relatively cheaply. But most people that have had them would say that they're quite good speakers, and if you ever get an opportunity to hear them and or buy them, it's worth a shot if you like JBL, and I like JBL. I have a number of JBL speakers. I like my JBL speakers. So let's leave it at that. Lance here, the Vintage Speaker Audiophile. Thanks for joining today. Smash that like button if you can.